So we're rolling now. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a quick
Okay.
story? Yeah.
1990 was a very, very memorable year for me. Number one, I retired. Number two, I got married. And number three, we purchased a property out here. We had lived here for about a year when we realized that along with the price of the property at no additional cost whatsoever, we inherited a swamp with billions of mosquitoes. Couldn't sit out and enjoy the view. It was just miserable. So my neighbor in the back and I decided that we were going to start fighting the mosquitoes. We were going to do something. Now, back in the early 90s, the internet wasn't really, it was in its infancy stages. So we didn't have the luxury of having the internet and Google and all this. So we were going to the libraries because we knew, someone mentioned if we could find a bird that would eat insects, that it might help. So we discovered 3 different birds initially. We discovered the bat, the purple martin, and the tree swallow. We tried bats, that didn't work. The purple martins, you need a bigger area without trees and stuff. And so we decided on the tree swallows. And this is the perfect spot for a tree swallow. They like forest, they like a body of water, they like wetlands. So they're very easy to attract, very easy. We started out, we put 20 boxes up. And the one bad thing about tree swallows is that they don't come back to a dirty nesting box. You got to clean the nesting boxes. Sparrows, wrens, any other bird, they don't care. But for some reason, the tree swallow just will not come back to a dirty nest. But by the same token, we could monitor the usage, how many of them were being used. So first year, every single box had a nest in it. So this was great. Second year, we doubled it, went to 40. And at that point in time, one of the wives suggested, well, if you're going to keep putting these things out here, why don't you paint them? And the other wife said, my neighbor was initially involved, but he wasn't involved for very long because he passed on. The other one said, well, why don't you make them with red roofs? So that's how the color scheme started. And you'll notice they're kind of like jelly bean colors. So all of them basically have red roofs, and they're the colors of jelly beans. 40, all of them were used again. This is really neat. We doubled it again. So now we got 80, or I guess I doubled it again. I think by that time, my friend Hank had kind of moved on. So now I've got 80 of them out there, and out of 80, like 70 something were used. And I kept going, but it took about, it was at least 6 or 7 years. In fact, I was getting ready to think about stopping because it's a lot of work, and we weren't noticing any reduction in the number of mosquitoes. I mean, they're still pestering us like crazy. But then one night, my wife and I are sitting out in the front, kind of thing, but she said, there's not as many mosquitoes. And I said, I was going to say that. There doesn't seem to be as many mosquitoes. And as time went on, fewer and fewer mosquitoes. We still have a lot of birdhouses that are being used. And today, 20-something odd years later, no mosquitoes. The mosquito problem has been taken care of. It's amazing. It really is amazing that we can sit out now in the afternoon. Like if there was no wind, and if it was in the summer, we would not be having this conversation. But today, mosquito problem is solved. Even the neighbors have thanked me for, they're saying, geez, this is really great, because of the number of tree swallows. And they're not here right now because tree swallows are a migratory bird. They usually come around the beginning of May, end of April, and then they're out of here by July. It's kind of funny. It's fun to watch them when they come in at first, because they'll come in, there's a whole bunch of them that come in, and there'll be like 10 or 12 birds fighting for one house, not realizing there's 700 others. It's kind of funny to watch them, and it's entertaining. And then they'll finally work it out, and they'll move on to the next and the next. But WCAX came out here to do an interview this past year, and it was really fortunate because they came out during the summer, and the birds were they were everywhere, and they had their cameras set up over there, and constantly had to keep ducking because they're territorial, these little tree swallows. They're miniature jet pilot fighters, the way they dart in and out, and they didn't like us standing over there because there were some right here in these houses, yeah. But basically, that's the story. It's been a 20-plus year project. It's been fun. Once the internet became available, then we could actually. It was a little bit easier once Google came around. That made it a lot easier doing stuff. But And the dinosaurs are just conversation pieces. That's all there is.
All right, great. Yeah,
How many
thanks so much.
dinosaurs are there?
Just three, just these three. And there might be another one coming, I don't know. They're a conversation piece with the kids in the area. The kids love them. Now that one in the middle you can see, he was the very first one to arrive. And initially he was in across the road from my house, and we kind of wanted him to look like Champ coming out of the lake. That was the initial thought process. What was happening where we had him sitting, people would come by with their children and they'd put their child up there to take a picture. So I got the bright idea. I said, you know what? I carefully carved a hole in his throat and put in a two-way speaker, patched him back up again, so I could be over in my garage where they couldn't see me. They'd set the child up there and ooh, you're heavy, or something. The looks were absolutely priceless. For a whole summer, I entertained myself. It was really amazing. I was actually looking forward for people to come. But then what happened was, at the end of the summer, a guy put his wife or girlfriend up on for a picture, and I made some smart remark. Off she went, over backwards. She gets up and she's hobbling around. I thought, uh-oh, next thing I'm going to see is a certified letter. That's when they got relocated.
Funny.
So do you have any questions? I mean,
That was awesome.
That was
That
pretty
was
thorough,
perfect.
yeah.
I was just,
Yeah.
I had the dinosaurs I was going to ask about. and,
yeah, they're just for fun.
Yeah.
One of the questions that I had was, so are all the birdhouses, is this all your property, even on the other side of over there?
Yeah, I own the
Is there
lake. I mean, I own the
some-
lake.
okay.
I own the property right down to right where that sign is.
Right over here.
There was, over there, right? There's a sign that says private beach on the
yeah,
other
yeah.
side of that log.
Okay.
My property starts there and it goes all the way to my house. So yeah, and this out here is the same thing. It's like
Yeah.
most. I have 10 acres, but most of it's swamp. I mean, that's why the mosquito problem.
Yeah. That's crazy. It's like totally solved the problem.
know.
Oh, it is. That was just a
unbelievable.
miracle, really, for us, because it was very frustrating. I mean, these things are the size of helicopters, and I mean, they're coming, they're always constantly batting at them. It wasn't pleasant
Yeah.
to sit out and
That's too bad.
But that problem, and it's been years now since we've had to worry about it. It took, like I said, it took probably 7 or 8 years before we really noticed that there was a reduction in the mosquito population. But the birds are now doing their jobs. They are really, and they're fun to watch too. When they're here, that's one swamp right there, a wetland right over there. And you can see them darting. They're fun to watch. And then the other is over here. That's the other one. I'm just starting. You can't really see them very much, but I'm just starting to put birdhouses around the perimeter over there. And I'm just starting to do that. I've it's time consuming. And then of
yeah.
course in the fall you have to try to clean as many of these as you can. And they're easy to clean. You look at this blue, and there's a little nail in the side. And then the reason the door hangs down is so I can grab them and pull it out after I pull the pin, pull them out. And the other thing that's interesting is how many different things you find in these nesting boxes. Not just birds, nests. I've been covered with mice. I've had frogs. I had no idea how it got in there. There was a snake in one years and years ago. It come out of the water or something. I don't know. I opened it up and there he is. There's tree frogs, toads. 2 or 3 of these now. You can't see them. They're further into the woods. They've been totally taken over by bees. The big gray nests all the way. And I've donated those houses. I don't even bother with them. They belong to the bees. But I think there's 3 of them that have the big gray bees nest around them. So you can't even see the birdhouse anymore.
Are those
Cool.
I noticed there's 3 bigger ones. Are those for a different species or something?
No, what those are, and that's why they have kind of an oval opening. Those are for wood ducks and whistlers or common golden eyes. And we only get. I got them around the whole area, and the reason they're where they are is because ducks, when the ducklings are young, wood ducks or the common golden eye, they push them out of the nest, so you have to be where the water is. And in the springtime, there's water there when they, so that's why they're low, so they don't have very far to go, and that's why they're the size they are. They're big. We only get like 1 or 2 nesting pairs a year. They're not like the tree swallows at all. And the only reason somebody mentioned it one year, said, "Why don't you put up some duck houses?" And because I would have never thought of that.
Yeah.
Personally, never would have thought of it.
That's so great.
Cool. Great.
So, Yeah, the castles too. would be
Castles, okay.
Interesting.
Castles,
Had
there's,
something to say about them.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
there's 7 of them in various places out here. The easiest ones to find are if you go down South Street, you know where the apple orchards are,
Yep.
that road. There's a school right
Uh-huh.
across the road. There's one castle.
Okay, I think we actually did see that. I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah, and then if you go up this where that red car is turning right now, and when you go up to where the end of the road, you'll come to a T.
Okay.
Right straight across, there's another one.
Okay.
Up this road here, if you continue going straight, there's one up on the right-hand side. One of them is on the lake. You can't see it except by boat. And the story is, the person that built the castles was a farmer's helper. And he had this obsession with stones. They're all built out of small stones, like that stonework around my house. That's my hobby. I do stonework, or I used to. Things are too heavy now for me. But he used to take and pick up small ones. So when he was bringing cows back or whatever, every time he'd see a stone, he'd bend over and pick it up and put it in his pocket. And he lived in a house just up the road here, and he built the castles in sections. And each castle either had a lighting system in it, or it was piped for water so that you could see water coming out of it. He was really quite an interesting man. I never knew him. His name was Harry Barber, was his name. And I do know his son quite well. And his son comes out. And he also used to be the caretaker. That island right over there is Providence Island. And Harry Barber was the caretaker years ago on that island as well. That's basically all I know about Harry. Never met the man, and this was all taken care of in the 50s is when he did all that stuff.
Okay. So they're just kind of left over.
Yeah, it was just a hobby with him, I think, but when he sold his castles, he would bring them and set them up in
Okay.
pieces. Like
Sold
he'd build them in like 4 different pieces, and so he could handle it.
Yeah.
So he didn't build them on site. He built them in his basement where he lived, and then he would take them and bring them to, well, the various places. I think there's 7 of them.
Interesting.
Cool.
Yeah. Great.
I think we're good. I mean.
Yeah. Do you
our
mind
vid-
if we walk through your property?
No,
a little
no,
bit
no,
to get
I
some
wanna- no, I
to film
don't
it.
mind
All
at all.
right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you for your
Easiest
time.
way to, sure. Easiest way